Well, good morning, Carol Johnson.
Good morning, Bob Ponce. How are you?
I'm good. And guess what? We've
What?
made it to our 41st episode of the Harlem Emergency Network COVID-19 report.
That's something. It,
Yeah,
who would have ever thunk?
yeah. I don't think we even thought about how long we would be doing this or
No,
whether we
absolutely
would be
not.
doing this in December going
Right.
into the new year. But I promise you, we won't do any more for 2020. This is it.
That's right. That's it. No more.
That's right.
No, it is
Uh,
what it is. We never thought that this thing would last this long because we didn't know what we was dealing with. But now
yeah,
we
we,
know.
yeah.
You know.
So let's see what we got to talk about today. There is a brand new strain of UK variant of the COVID-19 that has showed up here in America, and it's not playing.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be more dangerous in the sense of spreadability.
Right. They're talking about it being as much as 70% more transmissible than the version that we have that is is everywhere already. And it is they found a version of it in Colorado of all places.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Was it that where one of the people, is that where the man was confirmed to have contracted COVID twice? Two separate
Um,
cases. One was Utah, and I don't know
this is
why Colorado.
Colorado. I know it's all the same to you.
But I mean, it's interesting. Everything seems to start over on that side.
Right, exactly.
They seem to be a lot more lax. A lot of those governors refuse to put mandates in place. So these things are expected to happen.
Well, one of the problems they're having with this is that the person that they found he's infected. He's in Elbert County, which is about an hour and a half south of Denver. And the man, he's in his 20s and he doesn't have a travel history. And so that lets you know how widespread it is that they can't they're what they're quietly saying is that they can't do enough contact tracing to even figure out how he got it, since this strain has been found in the UK, and they don't know how it got to a little town in Colorado. That's not a
Yeah.
good that's not a good sign at all.
But the sad part is if someone was in the UK and you
Mhm.
went in and this strain is a little stranger, and you
Mhm.
go to the supermarket and you have enough cases where you have people who've done everything they can. I mean,
Mhm.
and they've been stringent with this thing, and they still got COVID. So
Mhm.
I mean, there's not really any travel restrictions here. They're telling people to quarantine.
Well,
You know,
that again, the madness of how things are being handled here. The CDC cited ongoing travel between the U.S. and the UK as an explanation for the potential arrival of the new variant. Duh, we know that. What we don't know is that why they're not having tighter controls coming between UK. When this thing first started, they shut everything down between China, but UK is one of those countries where there's no restrictions, and there should at least be some checks on people coming through the airport, not just this voluntary reporting thing that is going on with our airline system.
right?
So it's
It's very
just it's,
possible he got it from one of those Thanksgiving travelers who came from the UK.
right. hmm And that's how fast this thing is moving. So we're in for a bumpy ride going into January. Uh, we're already up to 333,000 people who have died from COVID, and it was 300,000 just a couple of weeks ago. And so, we're losing like 15 to 17,000 people a week. That is an alarming rate. And what's happening with the hospital system? nationwide. It's really troubling.
Yeah, they're pretty much stressed out. A
Hmm.
few weeks ago, when they were saying that they were close to capacity, that doesn't mean that all of the ICU beds are taken, because you have to leave some for
Hmm.
serious health issues. But
Hmm.
now, with the consistent rise of COVID cases, they're pretty much about stressed out.
Hmm.
And it's going to now be um, a situation of doctors having to decide who's going to live and who's going to die.
Yeah.
It's just that bad now. And it was sort of at that state before, especially when New York had been hit so hard.
Hmm.
But now, the reports are out that they are literally going to have to play any, meeny, miny, mo. Who
Hmm.
gets that ICU bed? So more than likely, if someone is in a full blown heart attack and they're pretty much healthier than that
Hmm.
person who needs to be intubated with COVID, that heart attack victim may get that bed.
Hmm. So, Los Angeles Times is reporting there the story from yesterday, and the story is, Los Angeles is careening toward catastrophe,
Yeah,
and so they've had an explosion of COVID-19 patients have flooded the hospitals there, and it may soon force doctors to ration care.
yeah,
Um, the number of available ICU beds is headed straight to zero, and they're pleading people not to come to emergency rooms unless it's life or death. Ambulances are circulating hospitals for hours trying to find one that has a bed open so that they can bring in critically ill COVID patients who are gasping for air. This is just
and there you
it's
have it. I
mhm,
mean, you've got somebody who's really in critical care, who
mhm,
may be having, a cardiac situation, and somebody with COVID. But the bottom
mhm,
line is, if you have someone who's having a heart attack, who's 40
mhm,
years old, and somebody who has COVID who's 60 years old, chances
mhm,
are that bed is going to go to that person with a heart attack.
mhm,
They have a more a possibility of a survival rate, simply because of their physical condition, their overall physical condition. If they
mhm,
check those people out, they may check them out and try to find someplace else to send them. But
mhm,
it's that bad. It's that bad, So now that we're in wintertime, it's going to look a little differently. I mean, you remember with Mount Sinai, where they were building hospitals in the park?
mhm.
But it soon, I mean, we've been blessed so far that the weather has still remained relatively mild.
Yeah.
But a lot of those options are going to be taken away. So
Mhm,
now is the time, it seems, where they need to bring some of those ships offshore that sat on the shores of New York for months and months and months, while the
mhm,
people were begging to get them off this ship. The COVID cases hit, and they were just rising on the ship. Then the ship disappeared. This is the
mhm,
time when they need to be opening up
mhm,
those civic centers, like the Staples Center. Oh, and getting some of those ships offshore and moving those people onto those areas and turning them into medical facilities. And they need
mhm.
to do that now. Don't wait until all your beds are gone and you don't know what to do. And you have to turn people
Yeah.
away. But the bottom line is, let me just say this, the bottom line is this. Even if they open these facilities, who's going to occupy them? The amount of doctors are stressed
Mhm.
out. We can't get any doctors. Whoever's in your state, that's who's going to work with you. You can't get a doctor from another state or another country. So
Right.
you won't even have the
Right.
doctors. I mean, they'll be working 24/7, have each doctor have 50 or 60 patients. How many
Mhm.
of them are going to survive anyway with all of
Mhm.
that? It lies on us, people.
Mhm. And as I look at this article from the LA Times, there's another article there talking about how there's a Christian singer who's still doing super spreader events in defiance of the law and in LA. And I just don't understand. You know, the level of stupidity that's out there. Um, at what point do you have to convince people to stay home?
Yeah, but Bob, you know something? It's not even the stupidity of the performer. It's all the people that crowd in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you've got 2,000 people in a place, you got 2,000 really silly people
Mm-hmm.
risking their lives. They can't perform to empty chairs,
Mm-hmm.
but people keep insisting on showing up. And with all of these parties, that I believe is about 150 parties so far that's been found out that's going to take place in New York.
Mm-hmm.
The addresses are being hidden, but people are giving people information. They're giving the authorities information. Listen, there's a party taking place at such and such place, and you know by the size of the place how many people they're expecting to see. The
Mm-hmm.
thing is, they can't really give them an address because these people have actually paid to be a part of this event, and the address will come out later so that there's less of a chance of the authorities finding out that it's taking place so they could party hardy, and some of them going to party hardy right into death.
Mm-hmm.
$1,500 people are willing to pay to put their lives at risk.
Mm-hmm. You think that $1,500 includes a free COVID shot from the company that is giving out the shots in violation of the law?
Child, please. It wouldn't even entitle you. Well, certainly not a mask.
Yeah. But that's the story we've got from Par Care Community Health Network out of Brooklyn, under criminal investigation for basically obtaining COVID-19 vaccine that's supposed to go to healthcare first line workers, and somehow ended up administering vaccines to people who were not supposed to be on and getting it so soon. So they haven't told the whole story on this thing yet because they haven't said whether they were selling it to these people. I suspect that they weren't doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, and I suspect it was not an accident that people. I mean, we expected this, that there would end. There always seems to be um, um, a shortcut line for people who have the money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the thing about it is you know, people are so hyped with this vaccine that they will take a risk on their lives getting the vaccine. You'll see a lot
Mhm.
of places, they're going to ask you questions like, do you have any allergies? And people who just want this thing to go away will say no.
Mhm.
Those are not the people that need to get this vaccine. There's going to be a lot of different places like CVS and different places that are not medical facilities that don't know anything about you. You know,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that don't have any doctors. How do they find out they have an allergy? They went to an emergency room, but they don't have a personal care physician. So there's nobody who can really assess them. So even when you're getting these different shots and the flu vaccine and different things like that, and they ask you different questions, they're just going based on what you tell them. But there are some people who want to think that this is the magic shot. You got to be honest with these people. Don't put your life at risk. If you know you have an allergy, even if you haven't had an allergic reaction in 5 years, you still have a situation that you're allergic to. And people that have allergies should not take this vaccine.
Yeah, I think that's certainly been shown because they've not only shown with the Pfizer vaccine, they've had people who had allergic reactions, but they've also had there is a doctor in Boston who took the Moderna vaccine, and he had a serious allergic reaction to it as well. So until now, it was just reports of the Pfizer, but the fact that the Moderna vaccine is also showing somebody having this issue lets you know that this is one of the areas that people need to be responsible for their own health. This particular doctor had a severe shellfish allergy, and he got the shot in the afternoon and had an almost an immediate reaction. Um, so that's what they're more or less saying. Anybody who's carrying an EpiPen should probably not take the
I
virus, and
take
I
it.
think that's a good standard. If you
And this
if
is a
you have
doctor.
that level of allergies that you've got to carry an EpiPen, I think you should wait this one out.
Yeah, and this is a doctor. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they're probably more stressed out than anybody else
Mm-hmm.
on that front line.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't blame him for wanting to take it. But as you said, if this is the situation, don't do it. It's just just
Right.
just wait it out.
Mm-hmm. Now we have some good news in terms of a household product that seems to have some effectiveness in combating COVID-19, and it's good old Listerine. In fact, in general, there are a few different studies that are showing that nasal and oral rinses, mouthwashes, do have some effect against the virus. Now they haven't been able to do these deep studies in actual people yet. Well, there's I've read one what they call in vivo study, means it's in they tested on actual people as opposed to in vitro, which means they tested it in the lab without people. But they've shown there's been one small in vivo, but several in vitro studies that have shown that mouthwashes can be effective. Listerine has been mentioned in several of them, but they've also mentioned a CVS product and some others. So I think this is information that people have to look at this as another tool in your toolkit. So just like washing your hands is effective, washing your hands is not going to eliminate the virus, but the whole thing is about if you can cut it down, if you come in contact with the virus, and when you think about it, people think about, well, one little virus, and the whole thing is that the virus runs in packs. So if you're exposed to the virus and there's a preponderance of viruses, you have a tendency to get a lot of it at one time. And so if you can cut it down, it gives your body the opportunity to deal with it much more effectively. The viral load is the term that I think medical people talk about. And
Right.
if
It's
you
like a
can
buddy
cut
system.
that viral load by washing your mouth out 3 times a day, or making sure part of your protocol coming into the house is the first thing you do. What do? You take your shoes off, you leave them at the door, you come in, you wash your hands, you sing the happy birthday song twice, and make sure your hands are washed. And what should you do next? You should gargle. You know, use and Listerine is not the only product they've found effective. There are some who showed some studies that Johnson and Johnson baby shampoo, a 1% solution,
My
can also
cousins.
and knock it down. Hydrogen peroxide. Um, I like the Listerine. I've been using Listerine, way before COVID, just to keep down, colds and flus. When I feel a tickle in my throat, I start with the Listerine, because I find that if I don't, it can accelerate. So we share that information to say you have to do all the things along. There's no one silver bullet. Even the vaccine uh, is going to work only at maximum efficiency if your immune system is boosted. So we tell people this during this time, because this is the time to do everything you can to prepare your body against it. Um, you know, we already know that the vast majority of us are not going to have access to the vaccine right away. There's just not enough of it to go around. So there are some people who getting it. As we said, if you're one of those people who have allergies, which is a small percentage of the population, you make an appropriate decision. But even for those of you who are planning to get the vaccine, it doesn't mean you stop washing your hands. It doesn't mean you stop using masks, and it doesn't mean you can't do something else like gargling with mouthwash, and of course what we continue to talk about is boosting your immune system with vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, melatonin. So yeah, you've got to take care of yourself, because as we see these numbers, they're not getting any better; they're accelerating, and they continue to accelerate as a result of people just practicing stupid.
Yeah, and family gatherings. Family gatherings
Yeah.
is a major cause of this.
And it's tough because we understand it's we've had such a sense of isolation this year that it's the holidays, you want to see your family, but it's about being smart about how you do it, delaying the family gathering until January when people aren't traveling as much. There are 85 million people traveling for Christmas. And the smart ones said, "I don't want to be in the airport when that's happening." Um, we've been saying, you know, for emergency preparedness, yo, you're on your own, and this pandemic proved it. As much information that's shared, you just cannot count on situations being ideal for you to move around. You've got to make the decisions that make most sense. And
You know the sad thing, because of the isolation, people are
mhm,
willing to hang out with anybody.
yeah,
And there's going to be some that's going to even want to hang out with friends and relatives they don't even like, because they've been isolated for so long. But the
yeah,
bottom line is, if you stayed away from them this long, you can stay away from them a little longer.
hmm
Uh, this I can't wrap my head around it, because from the being on the emergency prep side and being on the human side, the numbers in my life are just going up. I mean, I stopped counting people at like 40 people
hmm
that I know that have died from this virus.
hmm
And in the last week, it was like another four since we had our last broadcast, another
wow,
four. Um,
hmm
Again, musicians, a lot of them are musicians. And in the beginning, I thought, wow, it must only be the musicians, because, being in the entertainment business for like over 50 years, way back in my teens, and all of these musicians working with them from way back then up until now, between theater groups and singing groups and bands and all of this. And I started thinking it's only musicians because they
hmm
travel all the time. But that's not the case. And then other people started passing. And then the musicians started again last week. You know,
hmm
Even a 16-year-old girl whose
hmm
mother died from this in April. She died. That was her mother's shadow. And I know that
hmm
little girl died from a broken heart. You never, if you
hmm
saw the mother, you never. The only time you didn't see that child with her mother was when the mother was going to work.
hmm
The 16-year-old heart was so broken. You know, she's gone. And we just know it was a broken heart. She just couldn't stand it being here without her mother. Because to have a
hmm
healthy 16-year-old child have two strokes and die,
hmm
that means this thing really stressed her out, that loss. There's going to be a lot of loss. Some
hmm
we're going to lose to death. And there's going to be family and friends that we will lose due to you taking precautions and common sense, and them
hmm
cutting you off because they don't understand your stupidity,
hmm
and you being a sheep. And then you're going to
hmm
have people that's going to get cut off because you have people in the churches, and they're going to say,
hmm
well, the Bible says for us to gather together. But the bottom line is, the Bible also says to listen to the government. And in
hmm
this particular case, the governing body is your medical professionals, because this is a public health emergency.
Mm-hmm.
They know better than anybody else. The conspiracy theorists, stop listening to those people. Stop
Mm-hmm.
passing over those pictures with people with twisted mouths that was caused by the pandemic. I mean, by the injection, the
Mm-hmm.
vaccine. Make a conscious, intelligent decision for yourself. And people, if you don't know what you're talking about, do us all a favor, be quiet. Stop
Yeah.
scaring people off.
Mm-hmm.
Stop passing out all these memes with this and that, and this person passed out from the vaccine. You don't know what was going on. It could have just been being overwhelmed, being on TV when the nurse got the vaccine. She fainted. She had no health problems. It's probably just from being overwhelmed. You've got all these cameras on her, and she just passed out. That's not abnormal. But any medication that anyone takes, for every 100 people that take that medication, you're going to find probably about 30 people out of that 100 that's going to have an adverse reaction to it. So that happens with all medications. Don't look at this as anything different. Just pay attention and don't let somebody else make your decisions for you. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
not sure, get that information from medical professionals. And they
That's
have,
it. The
telehealth.
information is there, and sometimes
Yeah.
you might have to dig for it a little bit. But the important thing is your sources. Like, when I'm telling you about Listerine, I didn't get that from some meme site. It's the Journal of Virology and the Journal of, let's see, I'll tell you exactly where they're
But
from.
Bob, we talked about that early on. They were talking
Mhm.
about mouthwash
Mhm.
because they said even with the mask,
Yeah.
that because people were wearing face coverings, that all of the different materials wouldn't
Right.
actually charge you, and you
Right.
could still ingest them. But the thing
Mhm.
is, if you go and you gargle, and then
Right.
the people were using like neti pots and everything and cleaning out their nasal passages
Right.
and their throats. So that
Mhm.
was something that was suggested a long time ago, and we did talk about it on the show, but that was so early on. But it still
Right.
stands.
Right.
It
So
still stands.
now what's happened is, just like everything we talked about early on, is that there's been research to support what we've been talking about. So
Right.
one of these reports was in the Journal of Infectious Diseases. The other one was in the Journal of Medical Virology. So these are well researched studies that are showing. And again, they're not suggesting that mouthwash is not a cure for COVID, but it is a method to keep the transmission of COVID down. Um,
Right.
you know,
It's also a
it,
chance to get it before it gets down. That if it's still in the
yes,
nasal passages or in the
yes,
throat, before
yes,
it actually goes down into your
right,
system.
right. One of the other things we talked about recently, one of our listeners posted this information, which we've talked about, which is that studies show that 3 milligrams of melatonin 30 minutes before sleep can reduce COVID, 30% reduction in most people and 52% in people of color. And as we have said before, this is not from some wild conspiracy website. This is a study done by the Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the most respected facilities in the world. So we'll continue to share information that we have vetted through reliable sources. And again, it is up to you to take this information and interpret it as to what it means for you. As we've always said, we're not doctors, but we're people with a vested interest in staying healthy as long as we can. And we have a vested interest in keeping our community healthy. And, quite frankly, we're not seeing the mainstream media talk as much about some of these other things along the way that will help. There's obviously a lot of attention around the vaccines, and that's important. But you're really going to need every tool that you can have to help yourself survive this thing. And so we hope that you're listening to some of the things that we talked about and you put them in play. We hope that you have a happy, safe, and healthy new year. preferably in your own home with family members.
Immediate
And
family members.
yeah, and if you really feel a need that you have to celebrate, do it next week. Don't do it this week. Go against the grain. There is no. Yeah, I mean, I know it's important. It's something you've done every year in your life. The ball drops and you want to go out and celebrate and stay out all night long. This is not the year to do that.
No,
Yeah,
it's not.
may, may, hopefully by New Year's Eve 2021, maybe you can go back out again. But this is the absolutely the wrong time. This virus is in full swing right now, and we're going to see at least another 30 to 40 days of this growth. We saw the surge that came in from Thanksgiving. Now we know that, the Christmas travel numbers were higher than the Thanksgiving travel numbers. So we're going to expect to see these numbers go up. I expect us to see hit the 400,000 dead mark sometime in January. And I hate saying that so matter of factly. This is a serious business that 400,000 Americans are dead, all in the year 2020. Well, okay, again, we're at 333 now, so we're not going to break 400,000 in 2020, but we'll break it early in 2021, and it will be less than a year from when this pandemic really took off. So that tells you something. And until we see a change in people's habits, when you have people who are still sneaking off to have $1,500 a head secret New Year's Eve parties, or so-called Christian singers who can't do a virtual concert but have to go out in person, and put more people at risk, in for the so-called reason of singing for the Lord. Lord didn't ask you to go out there and sing.
No, he didn't.
Hmm.
And as we said, be obedient to the government. And this is Dr. Fauci and the other medical professionals.
Mhm.
Going to get a lot of different information. But one thing that has not changed is the hand washing, the wearing of the masks. That has not
Mhm.
changed. The
Right.
social distancing, that has not
Right.
changed.
Yep.
And the saddest part about it is that all of the Thanksgiving numbers are not in.
Hmm.
Yeah, because there's always going to be masses of people that have latent symptoms. So
Hmm.
those numbers are not all in. Certainly the Christmas numbers, they usually wait 15 days after the holiday to start adding them up. So we're talking about 15 days from Christmas.
Hmm.
Before the Christmas numbers will really start to add up. And
Hmm.
then you have to deal with New Year's, which is a week behind Christmas. So we're
Hmm.
still looking at Thanksgiving going into the new year. And
Hmm.
it doesn't even look good as it is because the numbers from Christmas have already people, or some people show symptoms earlier. Some people show symptoms within 2 and 3 days.
Hmm.
You have some that don't show symptoms before 2 and 3 weeks,
Hmm.
4 weeks.
Yep.
And then you have those that are still infected that are not going to show any symptoms, but they are infected.
Hmm.
So this is the worst time to have a pandemic between that Thanksgiving and New Year's. It's such a short period that can bring so much devastation. And if the hospitals and the doctors and the medical personnel and the frontline people are overwhelmed now, we don't even know what that's going to look like come January.
Hmm.
You know, we're what, 3 days out, 2 days out from
Yeah.
January 1st, but by January, the middle of January, we have no idea what that is going to look like because we are already pretty much at the max.
Yeah.
So, if you want to continue to play Russian roulette, I think that we can't stop you. But for those people that are paying attention and are listening, and somebody says you're crazy, or you're, what's the term, anal, or it's still believing it's a hoax, you do yourself, your family a favor. Stay away from them.
Mhm. All right, so this has been our 41st episode. Hold on, I gotta put the sign up again. And along the way, I hope we shared with people some information that's valuable. I know that there have been people who have taken some of the information to heart and protected themselves. So, what do we say? Keep your social distance, wash your hands, wash your mouth. You know, take your supplements. You know, get your vitamins, get your nutrients, boost your immune system, and take care of each other the best way you can. Take
Yeah, and
care of.
I want to give out some end of the year shout outs to our Harlem Emergency Network, from you, Bob Ponce, to
Hmm.
our technical operator, Wale
Hmm.
Abdul Noor, to our
Hmm.
administration, Reverend Dr. Anesta Vanoy Kwame and her
Hmm.
son, Raheem Kwame, and Haja Wally, our information man, uh,
Mark
Mark,
McPhee.
Mark Miffy, our
Hmm.
boots on the ground.
Hmm.
Did I leave anybody out?
Uh, Soraya.
Soraya,
Soraya.
Sister Soraya. We
Hmm.
want to thank you for hanging in there and,
Hmm.
and being vigilant
Yep.
and on point. We couldn't do this without you guys. And
Hmm.
I want to personally thank my East Harlem co-ed,
Go ahead. Absolutely.
Dr. Angel Palermo, who was with us a few weeks
Yep.
ago,
Yep.
Selena Hernandez,
Hmm.
who's our captain, Doris Garado, our
Hmm.
co-captain, Evie Yeager, who's our administrator, and myself, I'm the disaster liaison for the group, and New York City Emergency Management. A lot of us started
Right.
learning under New York City Emergency Management, Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, Department of Mental Health. People
Yes.
who have worked so diligently with us, that I knew that our teams were favored, because not everybody can get into those rooms with those people
Right.
that would
Yep.
honor us enough to allow us to be at the table with them.
Yep.
So we are very, very thankful to all of you, because this has been almost a year we've been doing this. 41
Right.
out of 52 weeks.
Also, shout out to Stu Reed for the WHCR emergency broadcast team. Shout
Yes,
out Angela Harden, general manager of WHCR. You mentioned our good friends at the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene and at NISM. And I got to give a shout out to you, Carol Johnson, especially. We talked a lot on these reports and we've shared information, but I don't think people know how much of a role you've had in getting PPE mass distribution. Carol Johnson has personally been responsible for tens of thousands of masks being distributed in Harlem and in the Bronx, and it's been it takes a village, and we've been part of the village, and I think we've been privileged and honored to do whatever our part is to share information that can be vital. We decided early on we had to go to this mode to get information out as quickly and as effectively as possible, and we haven't missed a Wednesday morning in 41 weeks. So,
right. And we
um,
could have done it without you, Bob. Bob being
well,
the technical guy, anybody send anything to me, I'm like, send it to Bob. Because I know Bob can figure it out. Bob knows what to do. He knows how to handle it. You've been in radio,
mhm.
broadcasting, communications like over 25 years, right? So
Actually about 40
40,
plus. Yep.
see, look at that, 40 years. So
Yep.
tell them when your show is on
Well,
WHCR.
well, my show is on every Monday night on WHCR Soul Lounge Prime Time. We're on at 7 p.m. on 90.3 FM, The Voice of Harlem. We live stream on WHCR.org. And then we're also on our YouTube channel. We premiere our YouTube version of the show at 8 p.m. on Mondays. And so we're done for this year, but we're gonna have a brand new show next Monday. Hope you guys come by and visit. And we hope you come by back and visit us next Wednesday morning when we will have the latest on what's going on with COVID here in Harlem, in New York City, and in the country.
Yeah, let's not forget Stu Reed again
Yep.
and Doug with the after action report that comes on after we do during our Monday check-ins, our radio check-ins.
Yeah. I mean, and also let's just also talk about Wali Abdul Noor, who extended the work he's been doing in creating these community radio networks. He started out with one, which was ours, and now it's grown to about five of them. And with the New York North Network, we linked together five different radio groups on a monthly exercise, and it's really exciting to see what what communities can do when we work together, to keep ourselves safe, because all we have is each other.
Right. So we're like covered from what, 96th Street.
Hmm.
Actually, Harlem Emergency Network has the capability of going up into from 96th Street up to Westchester. But
Yes.
right now, the coordinating teams, the five coordinating teams, we cover
Hmm.
from 96th Street up to Dykeman.
Hmm.
So that's all of Harlem, East Harlem Central, West Harlem,
Yes.
Washington Heights, all the way up to Dykeman. So,
Hmm.
we're really, really thankful for that. And, hard work and dedication and perseverance pays off. So
Yep.
we've been here. So, like I said, Bob, I said over 25 years. Well, I wasn't wrong with that. He's talking about 40. So we're talking about people who have so much vast knowledge in the communications, finding and digging stuff, digging for stuff and getting, valuable information. And Wale Abdul Noor, who has over 40 years in radio operation, land, air, sea, and then he said, and submarine. I said,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm honored. I am so honored. I can't even tell you what it means that you guys brought me on board, because this was an all male team. So I said, okay, they need a little estrogen. It's just all that testosterone. Over.
Well,
They need a woman, a little estrogen to be brought into the
it's,
team. And they,
you
and
know,
I was nervous. I was really nervous, but they embraced me. And I am just so blessed to be a part of you guys. You know,
well,
y'all.
you've been down from day one. The first Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day, you were on as one of our speakers, and since then we got to get her in. We need we need her, because you have been consistently the most prepared person I've seen in Harlem, and possibly the whole city. And I'll only say I haven't checked everybody in the city out, but I have yet to meet anybody who is as prepared as you are, and doing it with more challenges than the average person has. And so we appreciate having you as our incident commander, because you've earned that, and we appreciate having a woman in an important role, because it lets people know we're serious about this. It doesn't matter who it is, it's about who's got the skills and who has the ability. And having you in that role allows us to do what we do best, which is focusing on our strengths and maximizing. And that's what Harlem Emergency Network has always been about, is utilizing people's talents where they are most useful, so that we can work together to get the best response and best outcomes for our community. So we're coming back strong in 2021. We are securing even deeper relationships with New York City Emergency Management, Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So, we don't do what we're doing alone. We do it in conjunction with our city and state governments. And at the same point in time, we have a measure of independence, because we want people to know that we're not beholden to anyone but our community. Our first objective is to serve the community, and so the information that we get, we've been critical of our partners at time. We feel like that's the type of relationship we need to have because they need to know from us. We can be that conduit for feedback from the community, and they get it in real time for us. And sometimes they get it full blast from Carol Johnson, and she's left them shaken up a couple of times. There've been a couple of people on city payrolls who but it's in love. It's in
Oh
love.
boy, yeah. Sometimes you gotta
It's
come
in
straight up
love.
to the
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
you
Sometimes
know.
she comes off like the grandmother with the shoe. You know, it's like it hurts me more than it hurts you, but it's gonna hurt you.
I mean, for real, it's like I've been here. You can't tell me, but this is like when you live there and I live here.
Right,
Been here
right.
my entire
Yeah,
life,
yeah.
you know.
So I mean, listen, we've been critical of our government because we want them to do better. But we wouldn't trade them for some of those other state governments either. We're not ready to, we're not ready to anoint them, or say everything they do is good. But we look at some of those other states and like, all right, we're gonna have to keep these folks and work with them.
Yeah, no matter what, no matter what. But Bob, it feels good. The last show of the year, it feels good to just laugh.
Yes, yeah,
To look at it's been a critical time for us, but at the same
right,
time, we haven't lost our joy. You know,
right,
joy of living. Yeah, that we still have
right.
that, and that we can go to that place on this last day after such a tumultuous year
Hmm.
we've been through. It has been something that I pray that we never see again,
Yep.
but just something that we've muddled through, and we've done the best we could. And we're thankful for all those that's listened in, certainly for those that shared, and for those that are adhering to the things that, we're talking about, who trust us to give you um, vitable, tangible information, and those that have passed it on to other people. So if we've done our part and that's happened, share it with a few more people.
Hmm.
We're very grateful to you and we're very thankful for you. And we're just going to ask you to keep hanging in there with us into 2021.
Yep. All right, folks. See you next year. See you next week.
God bless you.